Welcome to C Programming Tutorials. This is a production of YouTube channel Learnorama and the Facebook page Awesome C Programming Tutorials in High Def. In this tutorial, we are actually learning as to how to delete data from a file. And this is a part 2 of this tutorial. If you haven't watched the part 1, I would recommend that you do so. And we are actually in the middle of implementing an algorithm that we learned in the tutorials before that. So so be sure that you watch all these tutorials before you watch this one. So let's continue. So we were saying that we were saying that we need a pointer, character pointer here, to be initialized to the beginning of the buffer, and this pointer we will keep on moving as we read from the file. So as we read the first line, we will basically move this pointer to the end of and we put it in the buffer. We will basically have to move the pointer to let's see, to the end of this. For example, this is the first line, Larry, and then we will have to, in the beginning, it's gonna be pointing right here, and once we read the first, let me bring my pen here. It will be pointing here, and then after putting Larry in here, we will have to make it point here, and then after putting Frank in here, we will have to make it point here. So we will have to do that as we read the lines from it. So, and we already wrote this fgetS function call to read one line at a time. Okay, so now we have to manipulate the buffer here. So as we go on. So after reading the line, we said that every time when we will be reading the line, we will have to do one thing. What do we have to do? We have to check to see if the line that we just read is the same as the name Joe, because Joe, we don't want to write it into the buffer if it is Joe. If it is not Joe, then we have to write it into the buffer. So how do we do that? So after executing this, after this function called fgetS, line is string, this line is string, in this variable, in this array, whatever the line that it read from this file, it will be stored there. Okay, so what we have to do right now here is to check to see, we have to make a comparison, we have to make a decision. So when we have to make a decision, what do we have to do? We have to use if statement, right? So what we need to do next is that we have to say if line, if somehow we have to say if line is equal to Joe, right? If line is equal to Joe, let's just, this is not C language, it's just English language here. So, but that's okay. Let's leave it like this for now. We will worry about how to do that a little later, okay? If line is equal to Joe, then we have to skip. Okay, if line is not equal to Joe, then we have to put it in the buffer. So let's check for line is not equal to Joe. Okay, if line is not equal to Joe, what do we have to do? We have to put line in buffer, right? And how do we do that? How do we do that? Put line in buffer. How do we do that? It's very simple. There is a function called string copy, strcpy. Okay, so technically in theory, you might think that you could do buffer is equal to line. Okay, but this doesn't work with C. In C, you cannot copy arrays like this. Buffer and line, they are both a kind of array. Buffer is pointing to the array, and line is the array itself. Because buffer is pointing to the array of characters, actually, kind of, because malloc is just the same as if it returned a big array of characters. So you would think that you could do buffer equal to line, but C is not that simple. Long time back, I mentioned that since line is also a string and buffer is also a string, in order to copy a string into another string, you have to use a function call. Okay, and that function call is strcpy. Alright, so string copy is that function call, and what we need to do is it takes two parameters. One is the destination string, and the second is the source string. So source string is the string that we have to copy over to the destination string. Okay, so in this particular example, we have to copy line over to buffer, right? So this strcpy, it's for a string. Str is for a string and cpy is for copy. So string copy, strcpy, it will copy line, the contents of line, into buffer. Okay, but there is something wrong here. What is wrong? We said that we have to copy the line to wherever the pointer PTR is pointing to. So in the beginning it will be pointing to the beginning of the buffer, but then as we keep processing the file, it will keep on moving. So we don't have to copy it where buffer is pointing to, which will stay at the beginning. Buffer pointer, this pointer will always remain in the beginning throughout the program. Okay, we don't want to copy line in the beginning. If we keep on, every time when we read a line, we copy it at the beginning, it's gonna keep on overwriting whatever we wrote before. So we don't want to do that. We want to copy it where the PTR pointer is actually pointing to, right? So instead of using the buffer, we want to use PTR. So this way we will put the pointer, the line, wherever the pointer is pointing to. That's where the line is going to go. Now after we do that, what else we have to do? We have to move this pointer. If the pointer was pointing here and we put the name Frank here, this is string Frank here, at that point the pointer PTR is not going to move by itself. We will have to move pointer ahead. So how many bytes do we have to move? 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually the same number of bytes as the string line. So line has Frank, then we have to move it for as many bytes as there are in the string Frank. And then we will be writing Kelly, then we have to move as many bytes as there are in the string Kelly. So how do we do that? It's very simple. We say PTR is equal to, so we have to add onto PTR, we have to increment it to move it. In order to move it, we have to increment it. How many bytes? As many bytes, as many characters as there are in line. And how do you find out how many characters are there in a string? There is a function called strlen, which is a string length. It's like the length of the string. So whatever the length of line is that we just read, if it is Frank, then it is FRANK and then \n. Remember, F get S also reads new line characters. Okay, so we don't have to worry about it. The current, whatever the length is, including \n, we have to increment the PTR by that much and then store the same value onto PTR, right? So that way PTR will move. Otherwise PTR is not going to move if you just do this. This will just add and then throw away that value. We have to, whatever the result is, we have to put it back into PTR. And remember, whenever it is like some variable equal to some variable plus something, you don't have to write it this way. You can write it like this: PTR plus equal to strlen of line. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as writing PTR is equal to PTR plus strlen of line. So string length is the function, strlen. That's a function. You pass the string, it will give you the length of that string. Okay, so very simple. So do we have to do anything else? Oops. Do we have to do anything else? Well, look at this. We read the line, we copy the line into wherever the pointer is pointing to, and then we increment. But before that, we need to check to see, to make sure that the line is not equal to Joe, because we don't want to copy Joe into the buffer, right? So I'm going to stop here, and this tutorial is going to continue in the next video. So keep watching and don't forget to rate the video. Thank you so much. Bye bye.